All aboard for Noir Alley. I'm your driver and tour guide, Eddie Muller. So how's this for a perfect noir premise? A drifter blows into a small southwestern town and accidentally hooks up with a dame who's just been acquitted of killing her husband. The guy falls for her like a ton of bricks, despite the nagging suspicion she might actually be guilty. Things get more complicated when some of the town folks suggest the victim had it coming. Buried secrets start getting dug up, paranoia runs rampant, and suddenly there's more murder in the hot desert air. Sounds like 100 Proof Noir, right? Well, that is the premise of today's film, Lightning Strikes Twice, made at Warner Brothers in 1951. Only there's one significant difference. The drifter is a dame, played by Ruth Roman, and the femme fatale is actually a homme fatale, played by Irish transplant Richard Todd, which is why so many people will argue this is not really a film noir, despite a premise that's almost identical to 1945's Fallen Angel, a picture with unimpeachable noir credentials. As I've noted many times, some folks just can't accept a film as noir if the protagonist is a woman. It must have something to do with the guns, or the lack of them in films focusing on women. Lightning Strikes Twice was created as a vehicle for its star, Ruth Roman. The studio had owned the property for more than 5 years, and at one point intended to make it with Virginia Mayo. But after several years of playing small, often uncredited parts, Roman signed a long-term contract with Warner's after making a big impression in films like The Window, Champion, and Beyond the Forest, all released in 1949. Lightning Strikes Twice was the first time Roman got the full-on, name-above-the-title, star-making treatment. The film is based on the 1940 novel A Man Without Friends by Margaret Eckhart. It's adapted by Lenore Coffey, a prolific screenwriter who began her Hollywood career in 1919 when she was only in her early 20s. Most of her work was at Warner's, where she and Catherine Turney were the only women in the writers' building. I love this comment she made about spending a lifetime writing for the movies. They pick your brains, break your heart, ruin your digestion, and what do you get for it? Nothing but a lousy fortune. Coffey's previous screenplay was for Beyond the Forest, an overheated Bette Davis melodrama that, like this film, fosters lots of arguments over its status as noir. Both movies were directed by King Vidor, a tremendous cinema stylist who probably wished the silent era had never ended. That's because in silent classics like The Big Parade and The Crowd, Vidor mastered a dynamic storytelling style in which dialogue was largely unnecessary, even if the pictures had had synchronized sound. Vidor remained a vital director in the sound era, one of the elite, whose name on a film was always above the title. And while he had a reputation as an actor's director, the performances in his films always had a bit of arch theatricality, reminiscent of silent era melodrama. In films like 1946's Duel in the Sun, the acting needed to be big to match the grandeur of Vidor's visuals. The same is true of the films he made during the noir era. Beyond the Forest, Lightning Strikes Twice, Ruby Gentry. These were not really crime stories. They were dark melodramas to which Vidor lent his particular pictorial panache. This has tempted some cinema scholars and TCM hosts to nudge them into the noir category. Adding more noir spice to the mix is the presence of the reliably unctuous Zachary Scott. Coming off a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for All the King's Men, the utterly distinctive Mercedes McCambridge. Safe to say that at this point in her career, there was no one like her in the movies. As an actor, McCambridge was a master of vocal and physical nuance. But with a director like King Vidor, she could play it as big as the great outdoors. Also featuring Frank Conroy, Katherine Givens, and Darryl Hickman, here is Lightning Strikes Twice. If, like me, you find Richard Todd a distinctly stiff and upright actor, there is a good reason. He expected to be a lifelong military man, and had served with distinction in the British Armed Forces during World War II. As a paratrooper, he was involved in many crucial strategic missions and was the first Irishman to land at Normandy in the legendary D-Day invasion. During a career that thrived in the 1950s, Todd was always most effective playing officers in military dramas. King Vidor cast him in Lightning Strikes Twice after seeing him in Alfred Hitchcock's Stage Fright, made for Warner Brothers the previous year. I honestly have no idea why Vidor thought it was a good idea to drop this Irishman into the American Southwest, where the townsfolk brand him an untrustworthy foreigner. That's a pretty hard sell, given that the public knew all about the actor's wartime heroics. Unlike Zachary Scott, Todd didn't have much ambiguity in his persona, which is why you didn't see him playing too many shifty noir characters. As for Carlotta Mercedes Agnes McCambridge, Orson Welles once described her as the world's greatest living radio actress, and it's clearly that distinctive voice that was her meal ticket in a long career that included radio, stage, film, and television.
So you married him? In spite of everything, you actually married him?
She made her movie debut in 1949 as Sadie Burke in All the King's Men, which earned her a Best Supporting Actress Oscar right out of the gate. In all her performances in the 1950s, McCambridge seemed like a completely modern woman sent back in time. Her unconventional, almost masculine persona was used to great effect in films like Johnny Guitar, Giant, and Suddenly Last Summer, leading many people to speculate that she actually was a butch lesbian, something she and Welles had fun with when he cast her as just that in 1958's Touch of Evil. McCambridge's most famous role may have been providing the voice of Pazuzu in The Exorcist. It was inspired casting by director William Friedkin, who wanted the voice of the demon possessing Linda Blair not to be recognizably male or female, but something from the seething depths of hell.
Your mother's in here with his cars. Would you like to leave a message? I see that she gets it.
She recorded much of her scurrilous dialogue while tied to a chair, which McCambridge felt enhanced the torment in her voice. Her involvement in the film was at first kept a secret, a bit of show business that heightened the film's terror. However, McCambridge sued for a screen credit, which she got on all future prints, although to keep the mystery intact, her specific role in the film wasn't mentioned. King Vidor ended up having one of the longest careers of any Hollywood director. In the late 50s, he decided to make the kind of massive spectacle films he once derided, directing Audrey Hepburn and Henry Fonda in the 1956 production War and Peace. 1959's Solomon and Sheba would be his last studio film, which turned heartbreaking for Vidor when star Tyrone Power died of a heart attack during filming. He and Power's replacement, Yul Brynner, did not get along at all, and Vidor opted never to make another Hollywood movie. A Christian Scientist and student of metaphysics, Vidor's last films were rarely screened documentaries on art and human perception. In 1981, Vidor had a major acting role in James Toback's Love and Money, a gig he took just to see how movies were made in the modern era. He died the following year, 88 years of age. Now let me hear all about it on the Noir Alley Facebook page and Twitter feed. Next week, I'll have an obscurity from RKO, Hunt the Man Down, a picture from 1950 that's something of a forerunner to familiar TV shows like Perry Mason and Law and Order. If you like brisk and clever B movies, you don't want to miss it. Until then, see you in the shadows.